How is spring force a contact force? How is spring force a contact force? We need to first understand the concept and then dive into the topic. Firstly, what is spring force? Spring force is the force which is present in a spring responsible for the compressions and stretches of the spring. The restoring force that occurs when the spring is compressed or stretched is basically called the spring force. When the spring is compressed or stretched, that is, when the spring moves from its equilibrium position and tends to go back to the process is called as restoring force. Now that we know little about what a spring force, let us see how is spring force a contact force. Let us use an example to understand this better. A spring is a tool that basically compresses or stretches when a force is applied. Consider the spring to be attached to a wall, and when the spring is pushed towards the wall and when the spring is pulled away from the wall, we see there is a change in the properties of the spring. When the spring has been pulled or pushed, we use an external force in order to do so, as we know that there has been a small amount of contact between the push and pull action of the spring. From the very basic example mentioned above, we come to terms in understanding that, yes, spring force is a contact force, and that is usually when the external force has been applied. Is elastic spring force a contact force? Is elastic spring force a contact force? Yes, elastic spring force is a contact force. When the elastic spring has been compressed, there has been a small contact between the spring and the quantity that causes the compression. So when there is at least a small amount of contact between the spring and the quantity that caused the compression or the stretching, we call the type to be the contact force. And in that case, elastic spring force is contact force. In our daily life activities, we use so many things that come under elastic spring concept. For instance, a ballpoint pen, which is in a click pen model, has a spring inside which is elastic. Every time we click the pen to write, the spring inside the pen will compress each time, and while closing it will stretch. While we talk about the elastic spring force, we also must consider the stiffness of the spring and to which extent it will compress and stretch. When the object seems to be less stiff, it becomes easier to be compressed or stretched. Basically, a contact force is the one where a push or pull action occurs. So, when the elastic spring is compressed or stretched, there is a contact present in it. Hence, we call it to be contact force. Frequently asked questions. Is spring force a variable force? Spring force is a variable force since there is no contact value, as it is based on reactions. Spring force occurs due to the reaction, and when the spring is compressed or stretched, there will be a change in the value of the force. When a mass is suspended by the spring, it will pull down the spring due to gravitational force and force exerted on the force. So the spring force value will change according to the amount of compressions and stretching of the spring. How is the spring force different from the tension force? Spring force has the ability to go back to the original position, but the force of tension cannot attain the original position. Spring force has the inbuilt ability to travel back to the equilibrium position when being compressed or stretched. But the force of tension is the force produced by the object within itself, and this force acts in the direction that is opposite to that of the applied force on the object for its further motion to proceed. Tension force is also known to be the resistance produced within the object itself, and it is far more different from the spring force in certain aspects. Please visit our website lambdageeks.com for more articles on technology, engineering, mathematics, and various other domains. Scientific calculator and many more other tools.